Let's talk about one of the most fundamental questions in any legal system: punishment. I mean, we see it happen every single day, but the actual reasons why we do it are way more complex and debated than you might think. So let's just start with that big central question. Why do we, as a society, punish people who break the law? Is it about getting even? Is it about making our streets safer? Or is it about trying to teach someone a lesson? Well, the answer, it's not nearly as simple as it seems. The oldest and probably the most gut-level answer is all about simple justice. Or maybe even a little bit of vengeance. It's this deep-seated idea that a wrong has to be paid for. This has a name, of course. It's called the Retributive Theory. And its whole philosophy is that punishment isn't a means to an end. It is the end. It's not about preventing future crimes. Nope. It is entirely backward-looking, totally focused on the crime that already happened, and on the simple belief that whoever did it deserves to suffer for it. This ancient quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The punishment should fit the crime. It's this principle of proportionality, this idea that you find true justice by creating an equal and opposite harm. And then you get philosophers like Immanuel Kant, who took this idea to its absolute logical extreme. He argued that punishment was a moral duty, so much so that even if society was literally about to fall apart, you would still be morally obligated to execute the last murderer. For Kant, it's the act of retribution itself that balances the universal scales of justice. Okay, but of course, a lot of people would argue that punishment needs to have a more practical point, right? It shouldn't just be about settling old scores. It should be about creating a better, safer future for everyone. And that's where we get to the utilitarian school of thought, famously championed by thinkers like Jeremy Bentham. He basically said, look, the goal of punishment isn't to make the offender suffer just for the sake of it. The goal is to use that punishment as a tool to prevent more crimes from happening down the line and to benefit all of society. So this forward-looking approach kind of breaks down into three main goals. First, you've got deterrence. That's about making an example of someone to scare other people off. Then there's incapacitation, which is much simpler. You just lock someone up so they physically can't hurt anyone else. And finally, rehabilitation, which tries to fix the root causes of why someone committed a crime in the first place, so they won't do it again. Now, on the surface, these theories sound like total common sense. Inflict pain to deter crime, lock people up to keep us safe. It all seems so logical. But what happens when we check in with modern research? This is the million-dollar question that modern criminology tries to answer when we actually put these centuries-old ideas to the test under the microscope of data and evidence. Do they really hold up? And the answer is, well, it's pretty shocking. A lot of the time, it's a flat no. Get this. A massive review of over 100 different studies found that sending people to prison has either no effect on whether they'll commit another crime, or it actually makes them more likely to. That word criminogenic, it literally means crime-causing. Think about that for a second. Okay, so what about just keeping criminals off the streets? Incapacitation. Well, even that is way less effective than it sounds. For one, research shows that crime drops off a cliff as people get older, so really long sentences have diminishing returns. For stuff like drug dealing, there's a replacement effect. You lock one person up, another one just takes their place. And when a country already has a giant prison population, locking up one more person just doesn't provide much extra safety. So if our traditional models of punishment are on some pretty shaky ground evidence-wise, what's the alternative? And that question leads us to a fundamentally different way of looking at all of this. A new paradigm is emerging called restorative justice, and it completely flips the question on its head. Instead of asking, how do we hurt the offender, it asks, how do we heal the victim and the community? So the central idea here, the key word is restoration. The goal isn't to cause suffering, not at all. It's about focusing on repairing the actual damage that was done. It often means bringing the victim, the offender, and the community together to figure out, collectively, how to make things as right as possible. This comparison here just makes the difference crystal clear. On one side, you've got retribution. It's backward-looking, it's obsessed with the question, what does the offender deserve? But on the other side, you have restitution, which is a huge part of restorative justice, and it's entirely forward-looking. The question is, how can the harm be repaired? It's just a massive shift in focus, away from the offender and onto the victim and the community. So we've seen that what we all think of as common sense about punishment isn't always backed up by the evidence. And it turns out the actual experience of being punished is far from straightforward. Just listen to this quote. It's from someone who's actually been through the system. We all just automatically assume that going to jail is the ultimate punishment, the worst thing that can happen. But for some people, the daily grind, the constant requirements and restrictions of probation are actually experienced as being more severe. That totally challenges our entire idea of what tough on crime even means. So what this all boils down to is that punishment isn't some simple, objective thing. The pain of a sentence is completely subjective. And as we've seen, whether these punishments actually achieve what we want them to, well, that's very much an open question. And that leaves us with one last, really difficult question to chew on. If our oldest ideas about punishment don't really work as intended, and the pain they cause is so inconsistent, then maybe we need to rethink the whole goal. What should a system of justice truly be trying to accomplish in the first place?